Okay, we're up to where we began. We did the first paragraph of Ois Gimel. So we're explaining the office and the Mois, which he explained are the shoyrish and are invested in every yid. Every yid is Yisrael. Yisrael de Le'ela is Zod Atzilus. The 600,000 neshamas, which are the neshamas klolius, from which all neshamas extend or branches of, right, are the 6 midas, as each one of them is made up of 10. That's the shleimus of each of the midah. That's 60 times 5, 60 times 10, 5 times, factorial 5 to the power of 10, that's the way to say it, to the power of 10, is 600,000, and all the neshamas extend from that. Why 5? Because it's the hey gvurus of bin, as we explained yesterday. So tzurim and gvois are chachma and bin respectively. So in their union, so in the midas Zoh is born, and that's what he's talking about. He sees, that's what the pasuk is saying, the Reish Surim and the Mikvois Hashem, this is in every yid. What is this? What is it that's invested in every yid? So you have to understand Chachma and Bina. You have to understand Chachma and Bina, the matter. Then this gives us an inkling as what Chachma and Bina is the Maila, and this is what is invested in every yid. This is the whole Akdama that Bilam said, as a consequence of which he cannot curse the Yidden. They're protected, as the Zohar says, from this side and from that side. Chachma and Bin. What's the big mile of Chachma and Bin? So v'yuvim ha'dugma lazeh b'odam lamata. We started this. Yeah, we'll start again. Just did a few lines. What did we do? So understand this by understanding Chacham, but understand this within the person, the matter, that in order for emotion to be born, stirred in the heart, we explained yesterday, it has to be first that Nekuda. We explained this even in relationships, certainly in the world of ideas. The world of ideas, the world of new discovery starts with an epiphany, a discovery. That goes without saying, but we said yesterday, even in relationships, the beginning, friendship, especially in marriage, is to start with the nekuda of this seems right, this feels right. Even though you haven't analyzed, haven't got to know her, etc. But at some point, there has to be that nekuda. That there is an essential connection here. And then there has to be the expansion and the spreading literally. That's bina, lashon binyan, building an entire edifice. But you need both. It's not that, as we said yesterday, that one then transmutes into the other, and chachma is no longer becomes bina. It's not so. That even in the yichud, the nekuda chachma has to remain, and that's need of nekuda beichala. That's the dot in the chamber, quite literally, that the Zohar speaks of. That's in the Nekudas HaChachma. It's critical that the chamber remain faithful to the Nekuda, the original vision, the original, that's the Nekuda. So then Nase, Lodas HaMidas, then Midas are born. I mentioned yesterday, this is a whole sugya. A sugya shleima. And what's implied here is, and as explained in other places at length, Ba'adichas Gedola, is that even the birth of the emotion, as I said before, requires the Nekudas HaChachma to be present in the Bina. because for a simple reason, the nature of analysis can go all over the place and can be never ending. First, never ending. Another question, another perspective. So for an attachment to be born, to be developed, and to grow, then we can't lose sight of that original connection that started the whole thing. It just then develops into the analysis. So you can lose even the emotional connection. Tzadbina, Ischalkus, and Kashis, and analysis, the whole thing can be lost, forgotten and lost. So the Nekuda has to be in the Heichal for Bina to end up in a specific direction that Chachma wants to go, love or fear or awe, respect, whatever it is, that the mind we're going to explain is already latent within the Kudas HaChachma. It's all there. But if Bina gets a life of its own, you can lose that. So it has to be the Yichud of, be clear on this, yeah? The Yichud of Chachma Bina, Nekuda Beichalla. Haino, meaning he spells it out for us largely. So therefore, an idea that is shaykh to ava, that's the whole direction this is going, something desirable. So Lord, which shaykh to ava, this is a good thing. So eventually, from the appreciation, the understanding, the epiphany, and then the appreciation of that epiphany, the analysis comes, the ava and chesed in the heart. And the idea to begin with, that is, it's an awesome discovery, as it were, engendering awe, distance. This doesn't mean you stay away from it, but it means that the whole idea is something that is awesome. We discovered the atom, how to make an atom bomb. So throughout, that's yira, that's awe, the whole relationship to the whole thing. This is a dangerous, powerful thing. It's an ava. As he develops it and builds it all the way down into Maisa B'Peil, it's all threaded with yira. This is an awesome thing, literally, or terrifying. To use an extreme example. So Ma'aseichel HaShaykh the Yira and Leil the Midas HaYira V'Gvur V'Apachet Shebelev, and from an idea that's shaykh to begin with the Yira, so that will produce fear and awe and dread in the heart, like he says in Tanya Perigimel. Interestingly enough, I'm just remembering it's going to be connected to our story today. Now continue. So what is the pasuk saying? That he sees Eden, where he sees them in the Reish Surim and in the Gvois. Even before the level of Yisrael, which is the actual manifested midas. Every yid, of course, has all midas. In fact, all 10 spheres embedded in his and defines him. But we're all different. The 7 branches of the menorah in terms of the midas, and that's where it's at the midas level that Zoh, that's what Zoh is. So even before Zoh emerges as a mitzias, as a clearly identifiable Isha Chesed, Isha Gvura, etc., or within each person having these emotions. So Yeshna, here's the Nakuda. Kvar mitzius, he sees them already. And that's the point here, that Eden, Zoh, have within them this in the Elikus, Chachma, Bina. The purity of Elikus. So, because he sees them in the Tzurim Gvois, Chachma, Bina. Zeb explains, the worlds apart, the world of intellect, the world of emotion. How are the emotions? How is Zoh present in Chachma and Bin? Answer: The fact that it's a natural process. This is not compelled from any external, extraneous force. It's from the Nekudas HaSkola, eventually the Mid is born, shari in brackets. He's born in the Nekudas HaSkola. Because how is the emotion born? It's through delving deeply in thinking and meditating deeply and analyzing the Nekudas HaSkola, that discovery, that epiphany. And it's after developing this Nekuda and being faithful to it, the Nekuda never leaving, but at the same time, a very elaborate development and appreciation of the Nekuda of the discovery, of that epiphany. It's that itself that is going to produce the appropriate, the according emotion, ava, yira, and its various branches. So the fact that that's the natural product of the development of the nekuda muchach, perforce, he must conclude, therefore, the midas exist on some level, ava, yira, b'nekudas haskola, in that very nekuda. That this is a desirable thing to be close to, or an awesome thing to be wary and distant of, however it manifests. But the actual emotional response is completely subsumed there and not manifest. Completely concealed, it's entirely unidentifiable. Like the fire, the kinetic energy or fire that exists in the rock. And that's in fact the term that he uses. And that's obvious, that's dafka, the imagery of the rock, of the peak, the mountain, invoking this inyan that the fire is there, which are the midas, however, completely undiscernible or non-discernible? Indiscernible. Sure? Sounds right. Indiscernible. Yeah. In the tzur. Now, further detail. Dini Yadua, it's known, Samach Vov, Hachiluk Shebeinei Shebetzur Leishu Shebacheles. We've encountered this many times, right, guys? The difference between the fire as it's present within the rock itself, completely indiscernible, and the fire in the glowing coal, which is not manifest. It's a coal. Shall have as even though the flame is hidden in the coal. And so much so, you need, in order to bring it out, the fire, the flame, you need an outside force. You have to blow it, you have to fan it with the wind, with oxygen. Meaning to say, shall harvest him Staka they conceal the flame become means a helim gum and not entirely concealed. Just a small amount of air. In order to inflame the flame that it emerge outside on the surface of the coal. Moreover, not only does it require little effort that it emerge, but even when the flame is in the coal, before it's fanned, it produces warmth in a manifested way. The presence of the fire makes itself felt. Meaning to say, conclusion, it's a concealment, but a concealment that's not removed from actual manifestation, but shaykh to mitzias, to be identified. Not identified that powerfully that it projects from the coal, but it is a mitzias that can be measured and seen in the heat and the warmth and very easily coaxed outwards. Elagilu. It's a hell, the Mashiach HaMetzias, and he adds Elagilu to revelation. Because Metzias has different levels of Metzias. I mean a Metzias that is a manifested Metzias. The fire is shaykh to manifested Metzias, even though now it is currently Behelim. Whereas in contrast, the fire that's in the rock Not only there's no manifested fire, we can put the rock in water and we haven't compromised the flame property, the fire property, its ability to produce a spark is not compromised at all. Okay, and then that's how you say it. And when you touch it with your hands, that's the second thing. You put it in water. Number two, when you touch it with your hands, you don't feel any warmth at all. Furthermore, is the fire so removed from its ears? In order to reveal the fire, it needs a strong force to strike the rock, and then it produces the fire. That produces the sparks. Meaning, this is such a concealment that is not related to Mitzias manifested existence, identity. But the Gemara says, so this is all a dogma for Chachma and Bina. Where's he going with all of this? Is all to say how a Yid is one with the Eibishter, notwithstanding his manifested midah, which would be the flame. He exists already. The Yid is there in a complete state of utter oneness with the Eibishter to the Dargah of Tzur. And that's why he's immutable and cannot be cursed ultimately and cannot be severed from the Eibishter. Okay, that's where he's going with all of this. You said yesterday, what's in the Kudas Chachma? The Eibishter's Chachma means, and the Eibishter's Bina means, yes, I'm giving rise to otherness, but this otherness is rooted in absolute oneness with me. And that oneness is present in the manifestations. And the big chiddush is that the manifestations, which means the Yid, the Chesed Yid, the Gevurah Yid, or the Yid that has all of the emotions which we all do, you exist. You are there in me at the highest darkness of the Likus united with me. That's where I conceived of you. You don't emerge somewhere down the road as part of creation. You're there within me in Machshava Kduma, in Chelek Alekam Yamal Mamash. This is what this is saying here. Remember in Tanya, he says, in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe, the highest dark of the Neshama is Chachma. Which is what he's speaking about here. But in Chachma Gufa, this dargis of Chelek Alekam Yamal Mamash. But Chachma is the starting point because Chachma is that level of Elikus on the one hand, but already otherness. But that otherness is bottled by Metzias to Elikus. Inseparably. Keli To'ir himself, that's where Neshama is. That's what he speaks in Tanya. That's the darga he speaks there of Ola b'machshav. B'ni b'chayri Yisrael. Like a child comes in Me'achav. Then he says again in Tanya, on a short level, he speaks Chachma Datzilis, not higher. But in the words of Tanya Guf, as explained in the Maimarim later, there is higher dargis and higher dargis. In the very words in Tanya. Let's continue, yeah? So the Gemara say, the most when you midas, likewise the midas. This is after the marshal of the tzur and the gacheles. So likewise when you get midas, so the midas exist in behelim in chachma. There are two levels. Inyan Aleph Kvi Sham Chochma Beifin Sheyesh Ba Kfar Aschol Asa Shaychus Elamidos. So there's the level of Chochma, this is the external level of Chochma. That has already a Shaychus to Midas, Yuchol is Bahelam Akoponim, that the Midas can be in the Chochma in a concealed and latent way. Shazel Helam Akorev Alamitzias. That's the external level of Chochma, which is near and close to Mitzias and doesn't require much to go from the Helam state to the revealed state. That's like the coal. Deeper in the Kudas HaChochma, the pure epiphany there, there it's the pure idea where the midas are present in such a deep way that they're not identifiable whatsoever. But they're still there. Became that the rock produces the spark. Even there the midas exists. In just like fire exists in this very latent potential level in the rock. And then Nimsheches upon the Kudas Haskola, there is bone and there's Bisrach Vesis Pashas Avon Vasoga, then the Nakud of the Seichel. Through the process of meditation, expansion is Pashtas, understanding and grasping the idea B'chola Protim, building the whole edifice and all of its details at Shanase, Hechrech Besichloi. So now it starts to emerge a conclusion, an intellectual conclusion, a perforce, a Hechrech Besichloi, that therefore is a result of the appreciation of the subject matter. We're drawn to this or we're withdrawn. Be close or be far. Love or awe, various manifestations of chesed and gevura. Embrace or be humbled in its presence. In the presence of this discovery and the appreciation of it. This is already a conclusion that is hechrech from the meditation. At this point, it's still in the mind. It's still not in the heart. But this is like das. It's only in the mind. This is das. The analogy Borei Chassidus is Achros Hadin, the Psak Din, the conclusion. Achro means the decision, one way as opposed to another way. Of the Bezdin Adiyas and Hedon, the Chesed or the Hepech, innocent or guilty. She'ein ze. Here's the next page. If you have the photocopies that I gave you, the page. This is when the Sanhedrin Paskins, it's not an emotional thing. This is the conclusion of the mind, intellectual conclusion. Okay, do in the square brackets, this is the general distinction. Shebein Shoifet, a judge, Shepoisek Esadin, that renders a ruling, L'Shoitet, an officer, Shemevis Apsakdina de Peya, that actualizes the ruling, it implements it. The officer, he's actually involved in administering the. Can you get custody, or that's just what happens?
He adds the word gum. He adds the word gum. Interestingly enough.
No, that's because he understands why. He understands the ruling. He's there in the court, he heard the rulings, he understands and he agrees. But in addition to understanding it, he also has the Hergesh Belev. Now you're asking, should it be? I mean, both answers both. Answers both. I mean, if you're going to be administering Malchus and you don't do that with compassion, you ain't the guy for the job.
So you're making a statement about all policemen.
Policemen, yeah. You know, the English Bobby, he's what a, I don't know if they still exist. They still walk around unarmed. But that's the model policeman. He's on the street and he's supposed to be beloved by the people. That's what a policeman should be.
That the Moishe brings is that the policeman not only understands the judgment, but is himself invested in the outcome. So it's almost the opposite. It's not that he's withholding his passion. It's that he's emotionally into the multis he's giving. He bought it.
You say the opposite. He's
Yeah, he's not just intellectual. He's living.
Yeah, so it could be, yeah. So that's when it's particular. That's true. If he's giving, it has to evoke an emotion. That's the bottom line. If you're engaged in doing, actually carrying out and engaging the person in a chesed way or in a gvura way, then it's involved with an emotion. And it should be, but lav dafka. I mean, the Nazis in יימח שמם committed the greatest atrocities and completely detached. What's what I'm looking for? That was the whole. It was a surgical procedure.
The ones who were at the camps were so detached.
So the some they were saddest, but lav dafka. Lav dafka, the whole machinery. The guy at the top wasn't involved in the level yet. The whole machinery is like they're convinced that they're actually performing a surgery on humanity and removing a cancer that is to destroy humanity. I tried to explain this when I was in the March of the Living. It really struck me and it disturbed me that in Auschwitz, okay, on the one hand, when they were talking, I had some speech there, somebody, and drawing the analogy to other forms of racial discrimination. Of course, it has to be spoken about, but it needs to be understood that this is not what happened in Nazi Germany. Racial discrimination is that another race is inferior. Terrible thing. The Jew wasn't inferior. It's a cancer. A poison, a cancer that will destroy humanity. In my research before I went, there was the Stürmer Nazi newspaper had a column of bedtime stories that mothers read to their children. And one of the stories there is a poison mushroom, that one mushroom destroyed a poison mushroom in the entire field. So to one Jew's conclusion, that one solitary Jew can destroy an entire population. This is the question of inferior. Now the reason, Bemis, since we're on the subject, why is a Jew cancerous? The root of it is evolution. The root of Nazism is evolution. I mean, that they believed that the Aryan race had evolved towards and the world is evolving, and this is the ultimate. And the Jews' insistence that all human beings are equal. That's why they hated communism. It's not equality. The life is the jungle. There's no equality. It's the destiny of the weaker to serve the stronger. And then there are mutants. And there are cancerous cells within the body of humanity that need to remove because they retard the progress of evolution. It's rooted, Pashat, in Darwinism. Nietzsche. And the Jew that says, that's why for Hitler, communism was a Jewish invention. Because communism, this idea of equality, it's also this terrible distortion. Equality doesn't mean erasing differences. But the idea is good, the communist utopia, the workers' paradise, there is truth to that, equality. That's a Jewish idea. What's welcome with equality? We're not. Life evolves. And the black is inferior, and the gypsy is inferior, and the Pole, there's a whole hierarchy, and the Aryan. And of course, the irony was that they did not look Aryans. The top Germans didn't look anything Aryan. It's the irony. So the persecution of the Yidden should not be, it's not the same persecution of inferiors and racism and so on. It's not the same. It's a mistake to equate the two. On many levels, it's a mistake. That got me into trouble. But it won me some friends. It got me into trouble on the march. They'd like to hear that. They wanted to whitewash it and make it all the same as everything else going on. And that's the problem all over again. You can't even be honest about our persecution. I'll call upon him. Let's finish the paragraph. Yesh lahaylich, but not now. Wasn't PC. What I'm saying is that in the most horrible way, Hitler understood what a Yid is. In the most corrupted way. He's fundamentally not part of humanity. Not inferior. Not inferior, it's at a lower level. He's something else. It's an absolute foreigner to humanity. It's Emerson. Neshama is a chelik, like coming about mamish. And it comes down from a Yid is a Yid. He also understood it's not measured by from, not from, nothing to do with manifestation. This Nakuda is speaking now. Nakuda Sachachma. Embedded in him, no matter how, right there is otherworldliness. As Jonathan Sachs famously said about the Rebbe. Actually, my father said it. My father put it this way: that after the Holocaust, Abish had no other answer but to send down the Rebbe to revive Jewish life after that. Who could do that after Auschwitz? Only in the Neshama like the Rebbe. But as Jonathan Sachs put it, like what drove the Rebbe, in the same way that Havdalah, the Nazis pursued the destruction of Jewry completely on seichel and every effort in the world for one Jew. The waning days of the war, they're losing on the Russian front, and entire garrisons are ferreting out one Jew hiding in a loft somewhere. Why? Because there's one cancer, there's one Jew. Every Jew is as intolerable as Klal Yisrael was. That's in the Kodesh. So as he pursued in this irrational hate, the Rebbe shlichus, the whole generation, to seek out every Jew in this atzmis dika ava, this irrational love. It's worth every effort in the Jew in the world that one you should put on film once with the whole world.
It's the same
Ergetzu, yeah. Which the rest of the world in Kirov doesn't understand. Once a Jew is going to put on film, first of all, the early days he said it's a disgrace to the film. If he's going to commit to put on film every day, good. So you have to make out he has to learn and then film. Meet a Jew once and put on film. Charpes or bushes to film. Okay, that protest is not hearing so much anymore, thank God. But that's how it was. Because of failure, because you don't know Chassidus, no Rebbe. So what's a Yid? A Yid is someone who does this and believes that. It's a whole package deal. It's in the Kuda Atzmi. The mitzvah is in the Kuda Atzmi. Without learning Chassidus, that this is Eibush, it's all him. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow. Yeah, let's finish the paragraph here. So now, in when it comes into Bina, now that song has become so detailed. Now already it has to be chesed. It's still in the mind. It's still not in the actual, not in Zoh, hasn't emerged yet. This is in Chacham Bina. Which is like the gacheles, the coal, and in general, these two daggers of tzur and gvois. To be continued and developed, and what this means. More diyukim. The tzur erenu, the gvois asherenu. What are these two words? I see, I behold. What do they mean?